Hi, and welcome to Research Skills Development. In week one, we are asking, what is social research and why do we do it? Hamlet is a very apt persona to help explain social research. After all, he spends hours questioning the intentions of everyone around him. And that's a little bit like social research. It asks the questions that can help improve the world. It provides insights to problems, the large ones and the small ones. And social research helps society form itself. It reveals how we speak to each other, the language we use, and the way we communicate on the big and the small issues. Social research may be exploratory, developmental, or evaluative. Society can look inwards at itself or outwards. It may be inductive or deductive. Modern society needs the knowledge that comes from social research. Governments, for example, need research to help them formulate policies that affect their constituents. For example, in designing food packaging labelling to carry health messages, or in tailoring an education system, or providing services for the elderly or the very young. It provides all of the data required by governments and by service delivery organisations. Social marketers also use social research, activists and politicians. Social research assists in setting the social agenda, and it feeds into and helps shape everyday discourse, policy and services. Social research is very much about examining people's beliefs, their behaviours and their responses to events and to other stimuli. And it's about learning how these might differ between different people, generations, communities, social classes, and so on. In social research, we are always asking the question of how attitudes and behaviours differ amongst different people in society. So think about this, the recipe for success in life. Some people might think the recipe for success is hard work. Others might think it's being cool. Others think it's crime might lead to success. And at the university, we would prefer to think that it was a good education. But perhaps it's a fast horse or a large herd of camels that will help us get to the top of the heap. So it's interesting to see how much attitudes may vary, even amongst your own friends and classmates. So what do you think is the foundation for success in life? So at the end of this presentation, I'd like you to discuss it online for a while and just to see how different people's attitudes may be. So I expect that we can see that we all have a different way of looking at things. Social research allows us to explore this range of attitudes, of beliefs and understandings in a particular group or groups in relation to certain ideas, topics, concepts or systems. And importantly, it helps us define the hierarchy of that range and to determine which factors are most and which are least important. That helps us to understand how communications may be framed to influence beliefs, and also to help us measure a service experience. For example, satisfaction with a hospital visit or a library visit, intention to revisit, participation, the influence of the service experience on well-being, and so on. There are many different ways of doing social research, but it's broadly divided into two categories, that is qualitative research and quantitative research. I prefer to think of qualitative research as deep and quantitative research as broad. Qualitative research includes such methodologies as group discussions, in-depth interviews, ethnography, participant observation, immersion, and other methods. Whereas quantitative research is related to surveys, personal surveys, face-to-face surveys, telephone surveys, written surveys. It uses online panels and omnibus surveys. Data analysis and meta-analysis, polls and censuses are also included as part of quantitative research. In the coming weeks, we'll be learning more about the essential differences between qualitative and quantitative research. But as an introduction, qualitative research comes from a no-knowledge background. It's a position where we assume that we have no knowledge of the subject that's being explored. And within that, we explore attitudes, behaviours, ideas, and attempts to develop theories and hypotheses. It seeks to establish patterns of relationships where possible, and that's called grounded theory. It is often focused on special interest groups and specific topics, although it can be much broader than that. Essentially, qualitative research is developmental, intuitive, and as such, inductive. But in contrast, quantitative research begins with a theory or an assumption or a pattern of behaviour to be measured and explored. It measures the relationships against a known universe, that is, a total population of users, visitors, sufferers, socio-economical, cultural backgrounds, etc. Quantitative research is concerned with defined ideas and measurements. It is statistical, scientific, very objective, and in that it is deductive. Another form of research is action research. And action research is a method applicable in the main to social projects. These usually have a discrete start date and often a posited end date. Action research measures how things change during the life of a specific project, and within the timeline of that specific project, it measures what happens when something is introduced. As an example, I'm trying to think of one of the studies that I was exposed to was working with low-income people prior to the introduction of the GST, during the introduction of the GST, and following the introduction of the GST, and to find out how that actually impacted on their total well-being and their spend on household food and other goods. So unlike most other kinds of research, action research allows for different variables to be introduced during the process of the research project. Wadsworth has said, action research or action learning is action intentionally researched and modified, leading to learning what to try in the next stage of action. Life itself is a kind of action research project when you think about it in that way. A key part of doing research is developing a research problem, and this is something that we're going to be working on closely throughout the course of this subject. The research problem, which is sometimes called the objective or the statement of argument, is what not only drives the study, but also sets the bounds and parameters around it. So considerable thought is needed to develop a cogent research problem or argument. Some criteria suggested by Alston and Bowles for choosing the research problem include asking the questions, is it relevant, is it researchable, is it feasible, is it ethical? Ethics and ethical questioning are very important in social research, and we'll have more on that later. The research problem will be considered in the coming weeks, so you need to start thinking about how you go about selecting a research problem for your own assessment later on during the course of this subject.